Hey guys, welcome to Reflections, part of the Big Mosh Podcasting Network. Just wanted to take a minute to thank Derek for letting us be a part of this and to tell you to check out all the other great shows on that network. Please enjoy the episode. Welcome to a very special edition.
A very special outdoor edition.
Outdoor edition of the Reflections podcast. This is actually episode 5. And I'm very stoked to have a very good friend of mine, Mr. Dan Lomeli.
Hello.
And Dan, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because it's always better that way.
Okay. I am Dan Lomeli. I play the drums. That's what I love doing. And me and Eric have spent a lot of time in a small space together in over the course of a couple of months. And it's great to be here. I like thinking about stuff, and I like ideas, and it's all this is like way interesting, and I'm stoked.
Yeah, and I'm excited for this one. Dan, just so you guys out there know, Dan actually sent me materials to prep for this episode, which the irony was, how did they say?
Palpable.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that when we were talking about stuff, we were all talking about the same stuff.
Yeah, totally. No, that was cool. I appreciate your proactivity and your enthusiasm for the show. So what I like to do is I like to always start these things by kind of asking for your elevator pitch on what you think philosophy is.
I think of it as a way. Not like in a way that could be applied to anything. So like it's like the way you conduct yourself, it's the way you think about certain things, it's the way you react to certain situations. It's kind of like colloquially, I guess like a mantra, is a different word for it, but it's just a code of conduct for yourself in a way, so that's why I think of it as a way. Very
nice.
Thank you.
Very well thought out. Almost as if you've listened to these episodes before.
I mean, I might have heard one or two.
Dan is the first guest to actually have listened to any of the previous episodes, so that's where that was coming from. All right, so Dan, tell me, and since you probably know this one's coming too, but anyway, tell me, what do you consider yourself to have a personal philosophy?
Yes. But I don't think it could just be like one thing.
Sure, it never is.
Right. It's more or less situational. It would just be to like not miss an experience. Also act as if is a good philosophy to have at times. Just act as if you know what you're doing. Act as if you're supposed to be there. Act as if this doesn't bother you. And it's a good, like you could just act as if.
Right.
But just I try to take on things and just, like things are going to happen anyway, things be happening. And it's how you react to things happening is how you interpret, I guess, your perception or your existence.
That's kind of a interesting part there, that last bit, because that's come up in phrased in different ways almost every time. And the reason I always kind of smirk when someone says that is it's, is a very stoic principle. When you clear all the leaves away from that, it's the universe is always changing. How you react to that change kind of determines where you end up. So even when the bad things happen, it's how you react to that bad thing that really defines what happens next for you.
Exactly.
So that's why that smirk was emitted from my face, not like what the hell kind of thing, but more of everybody's kind of had that same sentiment, which I think is very interesting. Just from the human condition angle of it all. Yeah,
even at the subatomic level, we're all just reactions to change. Bacteria, the temperature changes. So now the ones that could survive at that temperature thrive, and the ones that can't don't. So that's a reaction to change. You could even look at it on a macrocosmic level where time is constantly changing, and us getting older and progressing is a reaction to that change. So we're constantly reacting to constant changes. In that, and even like to think of it on a very small scale.
Right.
But then you could take that small scale and put it to a big scale. Your job is closing, so you now have to react to this change, and you have 2 weeks to react to it because that's the amount of time that they gave you to find another job.
Right.
You are getting into a car accident right now. Like what's going to be your reaction to this change? Because there's going to be a huge change. You know, hopefully you make it out of it, physically okay. But, there's lots of changes going on there. And then, it's felt, et cetera, et cetera.
Very interesting, man. I like that. I like that way of looking at it, because you're kind of scaling up from the most basic, principle there, or basic. I shouldn't say principle. It's a philosophy podcast. The most basic concept there, and kind of, building it up to how it relates to people.
Yeah, I feel like there's a definite interconnectivity between most facets of life or things that you could experience. So things that happen on a smaller scale, you could apply them to the largest scale, and it's all kind of like a constant theme running through everything.
Nice. I like that. Now, in your days, do you consider yourself like to have certain influences, be it literary or otherwise, that have kind of helped shaped the way your viewpoint is now?
Like a specific thing that I read, or a teacher, or an event, or something.
Yeah, it could be a collection or a combination. It could come from within completely, which has happened to, is just completely acceptable answer as well. It's just kind of, I'm always curious to know, because I know from my background, the various things I've been through versus, I shouldn't say versus, combined with, certain authors I like to read a lot, certain music that spoke to me, certain films even. And all those things kind of went into the pot and cooked up the stew that I'm sitting in. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
That's kind of where I'm coming from with the question.
Yeah. I think, and that's why I said earlier, don't deny yourself an experience, is because you don't know where your next source of inspiration will come from. You don't know what the next thing you're going to experience that you absolutely can't live without now is going to come from. So I mean, it's really easy to say no, and I feel like it's safer. But not denying yourself an experience, that's definitely, so you could pretty much have a much broader and rounder experience, because there's only so much life that we have in us, and the fragility of everything is it's just there. And so if you to deny yourself experiencing something just because you're afraid to do it is, I think, just to deny yourself life, period. And it kind of came. I was almost killed in a car accident in 2004. This was a big road goes left and right,
Right.
And now we went left. I almost swerved off the side of a mountain in upstate New York while I was on tour with this band, and I was in a Suzuki Grand Vitara. Shout out to Suzuki for making one hell of a safe vehicle. 2001 Grand Vitara Limited, so sick. 6 CD changer. I was bumping, man.
Was it sweet?
Nice. Oh, it was sweet. It was white with gold trim. It was a pretty balled out car. So I made this hard left. I hit the cement divider in the highway. Now it was construction traffic, so there was only one lane, and still I hit this thing pretty hard and fast and shot over it and rolled and wound up on the wheels. Me and the passenger and all of our musical equipment, nothing happened.
Wow.
Not a scratch on us, nothing broke. Everything on the inside, nothing happened. The outside of the car was totally messed up, but we were fine. And so I kind of took from that, do you see how quickly this could have turned right instead of left?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it? Now there's a change. Now there's a difference. What are you, this happened. What are you going to do about it? And so I kind of that was kind of my push off point,
right,
to kind of get me to where I am now. Cause I was a really demure, timid kid growing up. I didn't interact with a lot of people in high school too much. I had a small group of friends, but I kind of just kind of retracted, I guess mostly because of fear. I was afraid of rejection, afraid of, not fitting in, afraid of not, being a part, and the things that I was a part of was nice to be a part of. So, it didn't really matter. But even with teachers and stuff, because I hear all these stories of people that have just really connected with the teacher, in high school, college, or whatever. And I guess because of my inability to act in that way outwards towards as strangers or people that maybe I thought might have been an authority figure, I never really connected that way with the teacher, and I feel I missed missed an opportunity with that a lot. I'm sorry, we walked way off the trail.
No, not at all. You did not, actually, because I can't think of a more acceptable answer than that car accident story.
Yeah.
That it might sound kind of awkward to say, but that isn't a big influence, right? I mean,
it's huge.
It kind of pulled you into this different way of seeing everything.
Right. There was my life before that happened and my life after that happened.
Exactly.
And I had heard a story on the radio about this woman. She was older, like in her late 60s. She had gotten into a really bad car accident. She was in a coma for a while, and she came out. And when she came out, she was like, her voice sounded different, and she was like singing all the time. And she was just like, I just wanted to be different. I didn't want to be the old me anymore. And she said a line that like I've always taken with me. It was, everyone is one near-death experience away from changing something about their life.
That's pretty powerful.
You know, so for me, that was like a main diversionary point.
Yeah.
And then the year 2007, from stem to stern.
Okay, is that where we're going now?
That is, that was another
Sure.
huge, like, here's A, here's B.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it happened twice that year.
That was an interesting year.
Yeah. I started in Incendiary in that year.
Yeah.
2007 is when I joined that band.
Yeah.
You know?
So for those of you who may not know this, Dan was a drummer for Love for Enemies for some time. And, Valentino and I made a joke that we're technically what I should say is that you still are. Because, like, I explained this to Dan. We're kind of like the Korean War. Like, we never really called it ceasefire.
It's never over. First Blood Part 5.
Yeah, I mean, we never called, a peace treaty, I should say. We just called like a ceasefire, right? That's what I meant to say. So you're kind of perpetually the drummer until further notice, I suppose. But so yeah, Dan, we did a couple crazy tours.
Yeah.
March Madness.
March Madness was the one.
Yeah.
Because that was the first time I had left the East Coast.
Okay.
And I
don't
know
think I knew that at the time.
Really? Okay.
So maybe I did, but
here's a couple of other things that you might not have remembered.
I don't know if I want to.
Just pulling it out. This is an exclusive. Add reverb to that before you put it on. Mm-hmm. 3. Okay, so here's some other stuff that you might not have known. So I collected dirt from a bunch of states while we were out in little travel shampoo bottles. I have about...
How did I not know you were doing that?
I have about 7 of them at the house. I have one from like Denver.
Okay, all right, hold on. I'm getting a very hazy memory of you doing this.
Yeah, and if we would stop at a rest stop, I would take it because, and again, this goes back to the car accident thing.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm ever going to be back here again.
Right.
And I want to have some, because like also, I get a weird brain fungus and I can't move my arms anymore. Now I can't play drums. So there's no chance I'm ever going to come back here again.
Right.
In this way, like doing something that I love with my friends. There's no other time that I'm going to do this. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
So let me get everything that I can. So I got like 7 or 8 bottles of dirt from different states. And then, do you remember when we got to California, one of the first things I wanted to do was see the ocean?
Yeah, I do remember that.
And I drank a handful of it.
Yes, I do remember that.
Because I wanted it in me. I wanted it to be a part of me. Because it's like, when am I going to get here again?
Yeah.
And this is my first time here. And like, I'm playing music, doing this, and I'm here. And this is great. This is what I've wanted to do for a long time. And I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, it's amazing to think back at those times. And, I think if I can street hoops, I think the only, I don't want to use the word regret, but the only thing I wish I could have done differently from the entire inception of that whole point of my life was to not take I took a lot of it for granted, especially Europe. Europe came at a time where this is, PD or pre-Dan.
Yes.
This was a year that we toured quite a few. I mean, it was 300 and something days that year.
Yeah, like really steady.
Between the U.S. and Europe and stuff like that. So, shout out to
flying aircraft.
Love flying aircraft.
Shout out to Delta flying overhead, messing up the podcast.
So, I just remember, I just wish I took more advantage of it instead of, because I was so consumed at that time with all the other day-to-day stuff that was going on. There was a couple moments where I'm standing. I remember one in particular where we went to a cathedral in Germany, and we climbed to the top of it, which almost killed me because bad lungs at the time.
Oh yeah.
And Almost killed a couple of us, actually. Let's be honest. It was like the highest point in Germany or something ridiculous in terms of structure. But at the bottom floors it was this roped off area, and it was just like hole through the ceiling, hole through the main floor where you would sit, and straight into the basement. And we read the signs, and it's basically that church. The damage to that church was done by a British bomber in World War II.
Oh, wow.
So we just they kind of leave it that way.
As a reminder.
As a reminder, right? So I was kind of blown away with that, and thought it was interesting. But then when we went to England, and we were kind of, checking things out, however, we ended up in another kind of church with the same kind of damage, but from a German bomber.
Wow.
So that was there was a couple things like that when I was in Europe that I was like, oh, wow. I didn't even forgot we were playing that night kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was just like, this is so cool. But for all in all, I think the experiences at the time, it's almost like those times will never exist again in that way. Even if you go back to Europe or if you go back to the Pacific Ocean, it's not going to be like the time you went.
Not that first time you were there.
Exactly.
It's not that first taste. It's exactly, man. When we were in Germany, I remember I was unreal sick. I had norovirus, so it was just like pure liquid hate coming out of every hole at 90 miles an hour, 20 times an hour. It was absolutely terrible, and I was like almost dead. But I'm looking out the window as we're driving to Germany. It's just like World War II happened here. There were like tanks hundreds of tanks rolling down these hills, probably. Artillery shells going off here, there, and everywhere. People running stuff like old ass history happened here.
Yeah.
And then you go to see like these old cathedrals, from like 1100.
Yeah, I mean the cathedral itself was older than our entire country.
Yeah, that's like kind of like the naivete that I think America has, like about like being such a badass. We're like the rich kid on the block. Our dad owns a dealership and we have a Lamborghini. we 1776. That's barely anything. It's barely anything. When stuff was happening in like 800, in like Europe, and they were building this stuff. Unreal.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Definitely a cool experience, and I'm grateful for the band experience in that way, because that's the only way I could have ever gone to Europe and hung out like that.
For sure, man.
I can't afford to just
pick up and go.
Let's just go to Italy for the weekend.
Yeah, doesn't happen.
I do know people that can do that, but that's for another episode.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, the point is, like, I it's funny, when I was starting this whole podcast, I made myself a couple of promises, most of which I've broken already. And
was one of them not to talk about something else that happened in 2007?
No, definitely. No, it was kind of like, I don't want to just keep referring to tour stories and stuff like that, right? But I came to this realization that when I was talking to Andy, like, that's such a huge part of me, and it is such a huge part of what makes up my personal philosophy.
Correct.
That I'm going to abandon that little rule altogether.
Screw it. Because it's life experiences.
Exactly.
And it's the things that define who you are. If you didn't go through this stuff, like, okay, so, I mean, obviously breaking this rule left, right, and center.
No, it's okay, though. I knew I accepted that a while ago.
Okay, cool. All right. So here's a good one. Okay, so about experience that, that helped shape you. So at the time, I was listening to a lot of, like, Radiolab, because it was super interesting. It was always on my way home from practice, so it was like I listened to it all the time. Super interesting stories, like not fringe science, but like cool, like scientific stuff, or like single events and stuff, cool stuff that happened. So I had this like wealth of knowledge, not knowledge, but like a wealth of like cool little things to talk about, but not really a lot of people to talk to about with them. Right? Yeah. So we were playing Breastfest in North Carolina in 2013, I think. And so like I'm on the roof on LSD with like 10 bands of this Holiday Inn, and because like all the bands are staying at the same hotel, and we're on the roof and we're just like chilling and kicking it, and just like talking to the my friend Greg, who plays in Take Offense. And we were just going back and forth and riffing on stuff and like talking about like way out there ideas. And because you're on the roof of the Holiday Inn, you could see the top, like the very, very top of the tree, the part of the tree you never get to see. And I said it just like that, and it's like, whoa, that rhymes. But that part of the tree, and it was bright green. It was such a bright green without even the light being on it, like it was almost glowing. And like that is the part of the tree that wants to be a tree the most. And I'm seeing it, and I look over that way and I see downtown Charlotte, and it's just like, you can see like some of the lights from the taller buildings and like, some clouds and shit. And then I'm just like, normal people have no idea what this is. They don't know how special this fucking thing that I'm doing right now is. Like standing up here with a bunch of people who you just kicked ass at a show with, right? Even if you didn't kick ass, you were just there hanging out. Everyone's hanging out for the same reason in the same place. And we're all friends from different states, and we're meeting up in one place at one time. And we're all just hanging out and talking. And like, I'm seeing the top of the tree that no one gets to see, you know, like, except for people who cut down a tree and prevent it from being a tree anymore. Right. You know, essentially, it's not even at that point because it's already starting to die. This is the most alive part of the tree. So I get to see that with my friends and stuff like that. And like, imagine like just some, you know, like someone who is not down with this life, just all of a sudden going and doing this one day.
Yeah.
Blow their minds like square out of their face. They would just like lose it.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a really special thing that not a lot of people get to experience. I'm so glad that I'm here.
There's actually a similar story that we were both there for. I don't know if you remember this, but we had like 2 days off or something, and
Roswell?
Yeah, well, yes. Luke and I decided we were going to detour the whole. Did they remember coming with us? No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
So we decided we were going to derail our van anyway.
Yeah.
To Roswell, New Mexico, because why wouldn't you do that?
You're right there.
But on the way, that's not even the point of the story. that wasn't even. That was like actually anticlimactic, to be honest with you. But
fair enough.
On the way there, we stopped at this rest stop. It was in the middle of the night, and it was like this overlook. Do you remember this? Let me keep going. Maybe it'll click.
There was like a plateau.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had to almost like hike up this thing. Probably not supposed to be up there.
But we went there anyway.
But we went there. Remember Matt didn't want to come at first?
Yeah.
And then he ended up coming. But we were at this plateau, and I remember, you know, I was the guy that always had like emergency MREs and like chem sticks at me with all times, right? Yeah. Which I usually got making fun of, except for this particular night, because I was able to drop chem sticks so we could see where we were going. But I remember looking up and seeing like what looked like every single star in existence at the same time, and I've never seen anything like that since or before that.
Right.
And I just remember being there and being like, I don't know, it was so humbling.
Yeah.
I felt so small, and then I remember dropping a chem stick next to my foot, and it like lit up with green glow. And then Luke looks over and he's like, yeah, that's about a 500-foot drop, like 2 inches to your left foot. And I was like, oh my God. Because it was in pitch black. There was no lights.
Oh, man.
And I almost ate shit for good off this cliff because I was staring up at the sky and kind of moving around. And needless to say, I didn't fall. And
it was a close one.
It was a close one. But I just remember the stars, and it kind of made me, that stuck with me out of all the times, because it just kind of made me, I don't know, really made me think. I thought about it for the rest of the tour. It sounds so like bougie or whatever,
but it's true.
It's just kind of like
it was a thing that was there.
I'm just so small right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it had like an adverse effect after that. At first it made me feel small, and then it made me feel like, I don't know, it made me feel like charged up. You know what I mean? It was really kind of this weird metaphysical, like, it's like full disclosure, I wasn't drinking or doing drugs either.
True.
This is completely
Jober is a Sudge.
Yeah, this is just weird.
No, this was like flying past Jupiter in 2001, like
it was one of those moments.
And then you're an old man in a bed, and there's a space baby, and then then it's credits.
Exactly. My God, it's full of stars. Good pull there. So I digress.
Yeah. And then another, I guess, code of conduct or philosophy that I would pull from, experiences in playing. And it was actually on that same tour, I believe we were in Oklahoma, and we played that like kind of like corrugated aluminum grain silo kind of thing.
Okay.
It was where Alex kept getting slapped in the face afterwards.
Was that Oklahoma or like?
I thought it was Oklahoma.
Kansas or something.
Could have been Kansas.
I remember that show though.
Something Midwesty.
Yep.
And just a footnote, an additional thing from this whole experience too, it taught me to engage with people more.
Yeah.
Which is, like I said earlier, something that I had a real problem with when I was younger, because everyone was always coming up to you and talking, and I was just like, I kind of had this idea like, if they're coming to see me do this, like the least I could do is stand here and do this.
Yeah.
Like they're the reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
And like, so it would be stupid of me not to engage with them.
And thank God for that too, because I was notoriously you know, I wasn't often encouraged to work the merch table just because everybody thought I was.
I love doing the merch
I was
table.
like mean look. What did I was intimidating or mean looking, which I'm not. I am not, by the way. I guess
He's
I'm
not.
just perpetually brooding without realizing
at the
it.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I love
Sorry.
doing merch because I was working retail, so I was just like, I get to handle money and fold shirts. This is my dream come true.
Yeah, I was happy to have you do it and talk to people because I didn't like talking to people.
Yeah, but it kind of forced me to talk to people
Yeah.
and just like sell like I would. It's like, hey, can I help you guys with something? You know, and I still do that today. Like if I'm standing behind our merch table, I talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And I talked to this one kid, and he was like, "What's it like being from New York, like New York, the city area? You know, because it was apparently like not apparently, but it was such like a foreign concept to him.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to know what someone from there was like. And I thought for a second, and I said, right now, there's someone in your town who's like working overtime, multiple shifts to save up enough money to take a bus to New York City with like everything that they have and try to make it. And I could slam a 6-pack of PBR, pay $20 and be there in 45 minutes, but I never go.
Right.
And that's like total perception kind of thing. Like we're all characters in someone else's dream. You know, like the poster on the wall might be you kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But like, seriously, we're just like this person's singular focus is to get to New York City because they're going to make it. And we could just go there whenever we want. It's like, that's what it's like being from where we're from.
Right.
It's right, like the center of some people's existence is right like a half hour that way, and you just never go because we choose not to.
Right.
And they would kill their grandmother to go.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, so like, and I remember telling it to that kid, and I think it kind of blew his mind a little. I mean, I wasn't totally baked at the time, but you know. Also, I met the other Dan Lomeli, who looked exactly like me.
I do remember
California. That was like a pretty big deal, if you ask me.
That was you know, to Tarantino this a little bit. That was a little bit of a Rick and Morty moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit of a Rick and Morty moment. Exactly.
Yeah, we did meet a Dan Lomeli with the same length hair.
Yep. Look the same.
Yeah, it was weird.
Within 85%, I would say.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of us together, and it's pretty freaking nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I normally at this point would, but there's nothing normal about this podcast. We're outside, which actually isn't bad. There's probably gonna be a little bit of noise, but you know, deal with it. We're outside.
It's ambient, man. It's nice.
Got some birds.
Yeah.
Got the
a little bit of cars, some kids playing ball.
Yeah, it's
nice.
cool. It's cool. So normally I would kind of ask more direct questions.
If you want to do that,
frame this whole thing. But
I can handle some direct questions.
well, I'm going to go out of order than I
Okay.
usually do. So, and the reason I am is because everything you said up to this point I think is very interesting, and I think that's why I'm like eager to answer this question.
Yeah.
Ask you this question. So if you had the ability to meet your 15-year-old self, and you can only say one thing to them, what would that one thing be?
More.
I like that. And then you would just disappear back into the portal.
Yep.
Interesting. That's I've always known you to be like, it's obviously I didn't know you pre, my Dan Lomeli.
Right. I was like 24, 25.
Right. So
yeah.
I didn't know you. I guess
No, I was.
I don't think I knew you. I might have known you when you had the car accident, but not like we know each other. You know what I mean? Like we probably knew each other from just playing shows and whatever.
It was 2006 is when I started playing with you guys. The accident was 2004.
Yeah, so we probably had interacted up until that point. Just,
Right.
Not like the bro level that we ended up on.
I used to have people hit me over the head with stuff at parties. Like cookie sheets, because it doesn't really hurt, just makes a big loud noise. It's like a backyard wrestling trick. But then I started like hitting my head against like load-bearing cylinders. And I did that for a while, and like I'm looking back and it's just like, what the hell was I doing? Like I would hit my head against like the table, like super hard, to the point where people were like, tell him to stop. Like girls would get upset.
Those of you out there who know Luke can only imagine what it was like having Luke and Dan Lomeli on tour at the same time.
Well, I was like, I was like the freaking Baphomet in the back, you know. I mean, I'm way beyond black sheep. Like if you say you guys were the black sheep of Face Down, like I was like freaking Baphomet floating in the back.
Yeah,
like that,
but we never treated you like the black sheep. I
No,
don't think.
but you know what? And that was the beautiful thing. And that's when, because like people ask me about my time in the band a lot. You know, it's just like, oh, but like you weren't Christian at all. Like, was that a problem? I was like, not even in the slightest. And that's why it was so chill. Like they never gave me shit. And I was just like, yo, I'm not like that, but I'm being totally respectful.
Yeah,
Whatever's going on.
And you were.
And, you know, it's just like, I'm not buying the car. You know, and they're like, that's cool, as long as, you know, like, you're not going to be a dick about it. I was like, I would definitely not be a dick about it because I like you guys and I respect you, and I'm not going to, like, you know, just, like, step all over nonsense like that. Yeah. You know? Which, and it was just chill like that. And it was a beautiful thing.
Which I guess at the time, too, our reasons were never even discussed for that. I think we probably all said the same thing individually to you at one point. Mm-hmm. We didn't, like, have this group sit down with you. We're just kind of like, hey, man, here's the deal. This is kind of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But... you know, so it's very sincere coming from all of us at the time. But I guess one of our hopes was that you would, you know, I'm speaking as myself from that time.
Sure.
We would, you know, one of the hopes was that you would see a different part of that faith that wasn't a jerk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of echoed the whole mission of the band to begin with. Like, hey, we're not all jerks. Doesn't have to be
mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. So it is interesting dynamic.
Yeah,
because you were, you know, you could speak to that from within, and 100%. You know, we had a lot of fans who could speak to that from without.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think we did a good job in that singular mission that we had.
For sure.
And
you were always open to talk to people. Like even on stage, you always said that you were just like,
I did. I did have people take me up on that.
But again, so we would have a bunch of people there, and it would kind of like force me to engage with these people, just hungry to talk to you about something.
Yeah, I usually got the hard ones. I think I told Tom on episode 1 about the goth kid that floated over with the upside down cross.
Yeah.
On Erie.
Yep.
Yeah, so I always got the characters that wanted to debate me, which is fine. I mean, I loved it, not for the sake of conflict, but for the sake of like having meaningful conversation. I kind of thrived on that. So when those kind of things happen, I would be very happy to speak to someone, especially when I knew they didn't agree with me. I was like, oh, this is awesome, because like to me that was, you know, that's a big part of the way my personal philosophy got shaped. In fact, here's a exclusive. here's a story early on in A Love for Enemies, before even Matt and Bill. Cause I'm, from a technical point, I was the only original member, but not really. I always considered Matt
Set
and
the
Bill.
Wayback Machine for 1928, Mr. Peabody.
Exactly. But I still consider Matt and Bill original, because that's when it was really like
picking up steam,
meant something.
Sure.
But before that, even I worked with this, and this is just before 9/11 actually. And I worked with this gentleman named Shad, who was from Afghanistan. Now, this is before the word Afghanistan, you know, inspired thoughts that it does now when I say that.
Correct.
And he was one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And a really good salesman. I worked in sales at the time, which I don't like. But anyway, he would often talk to me about Islam. And again, this is before it was a quote-unquote dirty word.
Right.
And I was like, always like, yeah, man, okay, like let's talk about it. Like I'm not going to sign up or anything, but like I enjoy the conversation.
Let me hear about it.
So it was really cool. So he talked about it a lot, and he kind of explained it in from his point of view, which was very interesting, because I had never really interacted on that level with somebody from that faith before. And so we were talking, and we'd go out to lunch or whatever. He's very, very intelligent individual. And one night he invited me to his mosque. And this particular mosque once a month would have this round table. And the guy in charge would task, you know, members of the church to invite somebody from a different faith.
Oh, wow.
For that night. So I was like, this sounds amazing.
Like a cultural exchange club.
It was amazing. So I went, I think it was in Hicksville, I want to say. It doesn't matter, but
Pretty good chance.
Yeah, I went, and there was a Jewish man there. There was a Hindu, a Buddhist, an atheist, you know, obviously the Islamic people, and me in this room, right? And I'm like, oh,
the bartender says.
Exactly. Why the long face? So it was really kind of surreal at first. Nobody wanted to say anything. And then once the the guy in charge kind of, moderated the conversation a little bit, got it going. It was one of the coolest nights that I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah.
It was,
and that's not
so
saying no
cool.
to an experience. That is saying yes to an experience. Because a lot of people would have been, oh, I'm afraid. What am I going to say?
Yeah, I mean, the people I knew that were quote unquote legalist Christians were like, oh, you can't do
away
that.
From it.
Yeah.
Exactly, and they're saying no because of a specific idea that it really prevents them from doing so.
It was really cool, man. It inspired me to read more from those faiths, because especially at the time, it was my job to learn about all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because how am I going to go out there in the road and say what I said and have anybody take me seriously if I'm just this sheltered, uneducated, uncultured person?
Right.
So, but it was one of the coolest things in my life, because it's almost like that room is a metaphor for who I am right now in terms of my philosophical outlook. Not so much with religion aside, but the fact that I am that room of all these different things.
A philosophical pluralist.
Right. Because I guess if I had to, make a cake, a big ingredient in there would be, my interest of Stoicism. And because as a classifiable philosophy in the academic way, that's probably the thing I'm drawn to most and relate to most, and didn't realize it for most of my life until, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I started really getting into it and realizing, like, oh my God, I'm like naturally aligned with a lot of these principles anyway.
For sure.
It just makes sense. But the other thing in there, I read the Bhagavad Gita after that. I read all these like spiritual and religious books, and then psychiatry books, and I mentioned Viktor Frankl in the last 2 episodes.
Right.
I was reading stuff like that, and just kind of gleaning, like you're in a supermarket and you're like, oh, this looks good.
Yep.
Oh, this looks good.
Oh,
this looks good.
This.
Like getting your
Chinese
nutrients.
buffet.
Exactly. And I think that's so important to teach.
Oh, those scallops.
I think it's an important way to be, because if you're not, what are you going to be at when it's all said and done?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, are you going to be told what you believe, or are you going to believe what you believe?
Right. Like trying to identify yourself in a homogeneous mixture is nearly impossible, because everything looks the same. I don't think you could truly define yourself until you know the other.
Right.
And to immerse yourself in many others to truly find out, I guess, where your boundaries are, where not boundaries in the like physical sense, like, oh, like I don't like my feet being touched, but like boundaries, like, like what defines you, what shapes you, what motivates you, what things do you feel like you need to overcome. Similar story of a text really like grabbing you, the Shuangzi, which is the Taoist book, the translation from Burton Watson. I read that right after 9/11. I was taking a Taoist class at Stony Brook, and so I read that, and I was just like, I read it all the time. I was working at Geico all the time. I hated everyone that I worked with. I was in a call pay center, and I would just read in between calls, and I read this thing like 3 or 4 times, and it's like, I was like, this is because they were kind of billing Taoism as part of like the religious studies curriculum. But it's not really a religion, even though some might consider it to be. It's more of a philosophy. And I read a couple of other Eastern texts, and I found most of them that most of us consider religious or a religion because there's followers. It's more of a philosophy. It's more of like an idea. Like I said earlier, in Taoism, they call kind of like their equivalent of the Holy Spirit the way. As you recall, back to the beginning of the show where I said philosophy is a way. Right. So it's similar. It's a way, not the way, where they think of it in the spiritual sense. But one of the lines from the Shuangzi is, find the way in the morning, die happy at night. And it's kind of like this like endless search for you to perfect yourself. Right. Like not an endless search, but just continually improving upon yourself to make you the best version of yourself that you could be. It's about being civil to others, and like it kind of like just works off of just a balance to everything. One of the stories from it is the inexperienced butcher takes 30 cuts to remove the leg from the cow, and it's all stuff that like people of the time, it was a very agrarian society, could relate to. It was stories about harvesting and livestock and dealing with neighbors and stuff like that, and like rich people and poor people. It was stuff that the people could identify with, which is why I think it carried as much weight as it did. And it said the inexperienced butcher takes 30 cuts to remove the leg from the cow. After studying the way, and working at his craft, 10 years later, it takes, only 10 cuts. And then, 10, but the one who has been seeking the way, his whole life, and then tries to, then attempts to become a butcher, kind of like understanding the world around you more.
Yeah.
The bone falls right off, it's just one cut right through the joint. Like, he knows the workings of everything. He studied, he's like, had like like a background on stuff, and just kind of like developed this understanding of the world around him so that he could interpret it better. It's that reaction to change.
Wow. So that actually leads beautifully into both of my next questions.
Brilliant.
And the first one you've touched on quite a bit so far, but just to maybe summarize, if you could be so kind.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go with this one. I can live with this. So,
Okay.
So I was, by the way, not being rude, I was looking for a quote in my app in my notes rather, that reminded me of what you were just talking about, and I want to share it to you, and I will find it before the show's over.
Okay. While we're doing this, I'm just going to do something too, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Okay, yeah, because I have...
and then when it's time for it to happen, it'll be cool.
All right. So I'll find it. But anyway, first question. Can you think of a time that your, non-classified personal philosophy, as we've established, has helped you kind of overcome challenges in your own life? Now, and I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but is there kind of a succinct way to kind of wrap that into some kind of thought?
Yeah. I think just like the base idea is, like I said earlier, the things are happening. What are you going to do about it? And it might sound like it has a negative connotation where it's kind of accusatory. It's like, things are happening. What are you going to do about it? But it's more of a, things are happening. What are you going to do about it? Emphasis on the you.
Right.
And that's negative and positive too. It's like, you're getting a promotion. What are you going to do about it? Cool. Now, I have a little bit more latitude with my job. I have a little bit, extra money or whatever, and what I'm going to do about it is I'm going to save that and, turn it into something else, or whatever the fuck you're going to do with it. Go on vacation, get a dog, whatever, or like I said earlier, you lost your job. Well, that happened. What are you going to do about it? And it's tough to just say, do the right thing. But I think that's kind of like also kind of situational. Yeah. Where like, you're not the hero that the city deserves, but it's the one that they got.
Right.
So it's just about the appropriate reaction to change.
Right.
Because, you could make a wrong choice, and all of a sudden you choose the wrong reaction to that change, and it could set off 5 or 6 other things that aren't that great.
Yeah, sure. I've seen that happen. I've seen that movie before.
I've seen it.
So before, actually, I found the quote.
Oh, cool.
I was looking for.
Yeah.
Here's the quote. So what you were talking about up until now, I was looking for this Marcus Aurelius quote. And I think it's just kind of, really speaks. It spoke to me before you and I had this episode. Obviously, it's always kind of stood out, which is why it's saved in my notes here. But it also, I think you'll get a kick out of it.
Cool.
So it goes like this: do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. So that was saved in my favorites.
Yeah.
And that kind of really, that's what it reminded me of when you're talking about, from the car accident to, even when we're talking about your experience being in a band and kind of being the outsider in a, purely
like a Daniel in the lion's den.
Yeah. So, that kind of, I figured that would resonate with you, because it reminded me a lot of that quote, everything you're saying. So
for sure. And look at the end of that quote. Be good.
Yeah.
Also said that?
Go ahead.
E.T.
Yes.
Last thing he said to Elliot before he went back to planet E.T., he goes, be good and I'll be right here. Yeah. And then he's just like, peace out.
Maybe he was a stoic.
I definitely was, man.
It's interesting when I talk about the Stoics to people. A lot of people just, and I don't blame them because I used to think the same, but a lot of people kind of think it's just an expression on somebody's face. You know what I mean? Just like
very stoic.
Yes, they're stoic, and I thought that once too. But like, and then I have people say, "Does that mean you don't feel anything?" I get that a lot, and I'm like, "No, it does not. It just means that things that are outside of my control, I don't concern myself with.
Right.
And the things that are inside my control that are important, that's what I concern myself with. I mean, that's like a really bad elevator pitch of it. But you know, this is not a Stoic podcast per se. So neither here nor there. But, you know, one of the many things that draws me to that world is I guess it's the ability to convey the knowledge like that quote without being over the top. You know what I mean? Like every Stoic writer that I read is, you know, some of it's kind of that ancient Greek, so it's a little long formed, you know, the translations, yada, yada. But like the core of what you learn from reading it is so to the point, just like that quote I just read.
Right.
It was just like, you know, the other one that I like from Aurelius that I say probably on every episode, whatever, is doing the right thing is always the right thing. You know, and like I'm only reiterating that because I'm emphasizing the vernacular in which they use and why.
Right. Good. Correct.
Exactly.
Right,
it's just kind of like no fluff. Just I'm going to drop some knowledge on you.
What's right.
Boom. You know what I mean? So, but it really kind of echoes. I guess it's kind of like the center point for me in terms of philosophy, but it echoes so many other things that I believe in. And as we said at the beginning of the show, like, you know, some of the things you said early on, I was like, man, it's a very Stoic principle that you kind of touched on. And, you know, it's just kind of cool to see that in other people without them knowing it.
Like serendipitous. Like, it's just like, it's out there. They just didn't know it was called that.
Exactly. Yeah. And it leads to my belief that we all are connected in, you know, we talked about the collective unconsciousness already with Stevie, but it's that same kind of deal. Like, you know, we're all connected. We have to be. There's no way we can't be. Yeah. You know, we can delve into that in a 2 hour special.
I could talk 3 more hours about this.
But I mean, it just kind of reinforces that feeling. And, you know, having known you for as long as I have, you know, we've probably had some good talks, but nothing like this. So it's just
not at this level.
It's very
but
interesting.
Also,
you know?
If you think about it, at the time, I probably would not have been able to converse with you at this level.
Was that because we're at a different point in your life?
Yeah. I hadn't experienced a lot of the things that I experienced.
Right.
You know,
that makes sense.
Like, I mean, that kind of sounds like a wherever you go, there you are kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's true. I hadn't experienced the thing that I experienced and didn't, you know, look into, read, hear all the things that I heard between then and now. Well, I didn't live the things that I went through between then and now. So, you know, there's no way that this conversation could have happened then.
Right. To be fair, it's probably no way I could have for different reasons. You know what I mean? So it's just really cool after all these years to kind of connect with this. And one of my favorite parts about sitting down with you tonight and talking to you is the amount of things that we kind of have similar viewpoints on. You know, just we came at it from different directions.
Yeah.
Like you took the shortcut to the park and I took us the long way to the park, but we're both at the park.
Yeah.
So that's kind of really cool to me. And that's something that stuck out about this episode because I know you have a lot of ideas and thoughts, and so do I. And knowing only that of which our time up until this point was spent together, I was like, this is going to be fun, but I don't see us really agreeing on much or having the same viewpoint on much. Not in a combative way, but just kind of like we're just different from different spots, you know. But much to my surprise, here we are. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh man, I'm like totally thrown off my script here because like we're actually, you came to a certain conclusion from a car accident and things that you've read, and all these different avenues that have led you to your personal philosophies. And then I'm like, I have a similar one, but none of that happened. It happened like this.
It happened like this.
And that's really kind of. That's special.
You took 347. I took Middle Country Road. We both wound up at Smith Haven Mall.
Exactly.
It's fine.
It's pretty cool, man. I'm pretty jazzed up about that. I think that's another layer from this whole project kind of peeled away, and that's really kind of cool. And that's enough about that, I guess. So, what are you reading now? Are you reading anything now?
I'm not really a reader anymore, unfortunately. I listen to podcasts, mostly entertainment, radio.
We got to get you guys reading, man.
I know. I'm
going to stop asking this question at this point.
It's 2017, Dad. Get with the times.
Don't you have a Kindle or something? All right, so maybe I should alter the question.
Yeah.
What are you, whether it's podcast, film, what are you feeding your brain with right now?
Well, you touched on it earlier. I would highly suggest anyone out there who's into philosophy watch the entire series of Rick and Morty if you haven't. It's a cartoon. but it's not just a cartoon. It's like
An adventure.
there's a lot going on there. It's really, really deep to unpack, and it covers a lot of like high concept type of stuff.
Well, I want to talk about that briefly because
Yeah.
getting the weeks leading up to this episode, Dan has been sending me links and episodes like homework to prep for our discussion.
I just wanted to make sure we both were able to talk about the
yeah,
same
no,
thing.
and it's cool. I really enjoyed it. So I watched 2 episodes, completely crazy.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was, I had kept looking around to make sure nobody was watching me watch this because I was on my break at work. But and I also watched the video you had sent me with the kind of an interview with the creator, kind of explaining some of the principles that he was covering in the show.
Right.
Which, to me, at first glance, not having seen the whole series, almost came off a bit nihilistic.
Right.
Which I'm not sure if that's his thing or if that's just kind of one of his things.
It's one of his things.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about why you wanted me to watch those.
Okay. The 2 episodes in specific that I told you to watch was Rick Potion number 9 and Ricksty Minutes. They're not
Which, by the way, every time I think of that title, it just kills me.
What, Ricksty Minutes?
Yes.
So they're not consecutive episodes, but they're joined.
I did notice that.
Yeah, in Rick Potion number 9, at the end of the episode, Rick and Morty Cronenberg the world, and everything turns into like a weird flesh golem abomination. And so they're like, well, we can't live here anymore. We have to go to an existence where we die. So they go to an existence, and it's Rick and Morty in the garage, and they're tightening the screw, and the thing explodes.
Different dimension.
Different dimension, because
Right.
he has the ability to travel in between realities. Go to this different dimension. Rick and Morty blow themselves up. The other Rick and Morty we were just watching in the Cronenberg world come and pick up their bodies and bury them, and now they're taking over the spots of Rick and Morty in that reality. So Morty's his kid, and he basically buries himself. Like, he sees his body blown apart, he buries himself in his backyard, and then like for the rest of the time of the episode, it's just like the sound is turned off to him. Like, he's just walking around, and everything, like his parents are fighting, and everything's just like he's like almost numb to everything, because after you witness your own mortality and bury yourself, like, where do you go from there? In the Ricksty Minutes episode, Summer gets upset because her parents have all these alternate timelines where they're happy without her, but it's only in the timelines where she's not born are they happy.
Right.
So she's kind of pissed off about that, so she's going to leave. Morty has to tell her, it's like, listen, your problems are not that bad. Look out there. me and Grandpa Cronenberged a different world, and I had to come here to an existence where I died. It's like I had to bury myself in the backyard. I eat breakfast 30 feet away from my own corpse every morning. Nobody's born on purpose. Nobody's supposed to be anywhere. We're all gonna die. Come watch TV. And like, as soon as I heard that, it was just like a nuclear shotgun firework going off in my brain. Like, holy cow. If 3 things like that you could encapsulate into like trying to perceive reality and how like fragile your time here is.
Right.
Nobody's born on purpose. That's crazy. The odds of you being a living human in the United States with this opportunity is pretty freaking small.
Yeah.
You could win the lottery 10 times over. Nobody's supposed to be anywhere. So like, just enjoy, everything that's going on, and like be everywhere. That's the thing. There's nowhere where you're supposed to be all the time. It's like, well, I have a job. It's like, no, you don't. Just quit, leave, go do something, like go do something else, move somewhere. People have been figuring it out for so long. You can figure it out. We're all going to die. Clock's ticking, reaction to change. Things are happening. What are you going to do about it?
Well, that what's cool about you showing me that, but what's cooler than that is your takeaways from that are not what I first expected when I heard that line. Because it's funny, because before you even reiterated to me that line, after you had confirmed that I did my homework and watched the episode,
Yes.
I remember that line sticking out to me, and having previously already seen the interview with the creator,
Right.
I
think they have a clip of it.
Yeah,
in
they
that
do.
interview, right?
And but then to see it in context, the episode made much more sense.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought like most people would take this kind of like super nihilist, negative
super
takeaway.
dark, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, everyone's gonna die. It's like,
but
no,
the
it's
way
not
you're
that.
taking it, and
Yeah.
probably maybe the way he meant it, I'm not saying he didn't, but what's interesting to me is the way you're taking that is in a positive light and kind of encouraging light.
Exactly,
You know,
because in the
so-
show, Morty knows that multiple realities exist. The Cronenberg reality exists.
Right.
The reality where it's a bunch of greased up grandmas chasing you all the time, or the sun screams, or everything's on the cob. All these realities exist.
Yeah.
And the chance that you're alive in this reality, it's so small.
Right.
It's so small. You know, so he knows the smallness of her chance at being alive. Just like, listen, like, don't let it bother you.
Right.
You could be dead. You could be in the Cronenberg
Right.
dimension. You know, like,
Yeah.
like there's so many other choices that could have happened to you,
Yeah.
and this is what you got.
That's really cool. I'm really happy that you showed me that, and
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the
We're
series.
able-
Man.
yeah, I'm
Season
definitely
3
gonna
is
watch
like
the rest of
any
it.
day now. Season 3 is any day now.
It's
They-
crazy.
They did a transcript of this like Georgia court case. It's
Oh,
just
God.
hysterical. I'll send that to you later.
All right,
But,
definitely.
yeah, man.
So do you have any other tricks up your sleeves before we kind of end cap this?
No, I'm all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I could always come on again.
Oh, you're absolutely coming on again. There's no doubt about
Because
it.
there's some uncharted waters that we didn't get to, but I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, and it's getting very cold out.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
I've jabbered on enough for one episode. So
Yeah, we can definitely do this again. But
cool.
So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming on.
Thanks for
It was
having
a
me.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we're definitely gonna have you back. And
I was saving that for the end.
I was gonna say, you have anything to say before we go? So
Exclusive.
so what do you do? You're going on tour, right? After this?
Yeah, we're playing 2 shows in California. Playing Sound and Fury on Saturday, and then we're doing a pre-show for an after show of day 1, Sound and Fury Friday night.
Okay.
The closed casket showcase. It's at the Regent in LA.
Cool.
And then we're going to Japan in September.
Awesome.
The motherland. It's gonna be sick.
I love Japan. I think
Whole nother planet. I am so stoked.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yep.
So all right, thanks again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Until next time.
Can't see anything. Let this record.
Yeah.